Hey Dan, it is Monday, last day of the year, and I thought I would make a video during my last roast of the day. So I'm obviously today's a roast day. This is my last batch. It's single origin Carew. I just dropped it. You can see, I don't know if you can see that. Charge temperature is 433. And what I've done is I've created essentially a charting form. Turn that fan off a second. A charting form which shows you what the gas level is when I drop it at the time, which is 0. And then at these waypoints, 275 degrees, 300 degrees, 350, 370, 396, this is when I'm scaling the gas back. And I'll talk more about that as I go. So here's the last batch, cooling. I'm going to turn the fan back on. Here's the batch before that, which I need to put a lid on. So here's my current run time on this batch, 142 and counting. Here is, so this shows you where I dropped the tip. This is the coffee, this is the temperature of this probe right here, right in the middle of all those beans. You should be able to see those sloshing around in there. And this is the change in temperature minute over minute. So this is the delta of that bean temperature. So this tells you that it's changing at 36 degrees Fahrenheit per minute right now. And so what we want is we want this curve, once it tops out here, it's going to start falling. We want that to fall consistently all the way down until the coffee's dropped. Until the coffee's dropped. Which should be right around 400 degrees because this is a light roast. So I'm going to write down that 35 degrees is my max delta change in bean temperature. You can see there 160 degrees at 106 was when the coffee turned. There's my charge temperature. Charge means that's when you drop the coffee out of the funnel, the hopper, into the actual drum itself. Oh, that feels good enough. So I can turn that off now. So now while that is doing its thing, the first waypoint I have is 275 degrees. You can see the bean temperature is 234 right now. So I've got about 40 degrees to go. What I'm going to do is come over, because this, like I said, this is single origin Carew, but I'm using this mostly for Pickwick blend. So this is one of my elements of Pickwick. So let the rest of that. So the reason I scooped some of that out is because it doesn't all fit in one bucket. And come back over here and look, we're at 256, so we're still good. Close that. I'm going to leave that running because I'm going to use it to mix my Pickwick here in a second. So here, I want this to be about 13.6 pounds because as you can see, for every 16-pound batch of Pickwick, 13.6 pounds is Carew, 2.4 pounds is espresso. So I'm going to go back over and check and make sure we're still good. 270, you know what? I'm going to stay here. We're going to change that temperature here. At 275. At 275, I'm going to scale that gauge back to 1.5. And that was at about 5 minutes. So I will write that down here. 5 minutes. Okay. So the next waypoint is at 300 degrees, so we'll go back. I forgot my scooper. Okay, so we need to take enough out so that weighs 13.6. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in, this is espresso that I've roasted earlier today. I'm going to put in until that says 16 pounds. Okay, put that lid back on there, and now I can take this over here and I can pour it in, because what I'm doing is I'm going to use my cooling tray as a mixer, so that will blend the coffee together. Oh, we're at 302. I'm going to turn that down to one. So that's 1 kilopascals, by the way. And that was at about 6 minutes, 10 seconds. So all this charting is not required. There's a lot of people who just roast purely by feel. I tend to be a little more scientific than that. I want to be able to repeat what I'm doing every time. So this means at dry in, I'm going to turn my air up a little bit. So on my roaster settings, I've got my air setting is at about 28. 28 what? I don't know, but it's at 28. My drum speed is at 62. That's 62 revolutions per second, which you can see that thing spinning is about what that is. So we're at 321. So at 325, I will click that button which says dry end, and it will make a. Okay, so now it says 325, 724 was dry in. I'm going to change my air, turn my air up a little bit to a medium airflow to about 35, and then I'll turn it up to about 42 to 45 when I get to 378 degrees, which is about 30 seconds before first crack, which is when the coffee pops like popcorn. So here's the last batch of Pickwick that's still blending itself. I'll let it blend for a while longer. I've already got Sarah's coffee. Did you notice those 3 bags? Oh, did you already seal those 3 bags? The twist tie was on the wrong side.
That's the ordered ones.
Oh, interesting. Well, why didn't you put? Oh, because they put the twist tie on that side. Interesting. Okay. All right. Ignore what all that I just said, Dan. So anyway. So here we are at 342. Our next waypoint is 350 degrees, which is here when I dial that gas back to, I dial the gas back to 0.5 kilopascals. There's 350, and that was at 856. Also here on my chart, this is drum speed. You see 55, 50, 45, because I use that to help to keep the bean temperature from spiking up, which it has a tendency to do after first crack. So obviously I've got several variables here. I've got gas pressure, I've got drum speed, I've got air speed, and after fiddling with everything and trying to get a feel for each variable, as you can imagine, I tried to be scientific about it, whereas from week to week I would change one variable and see how that affected it. But for the longest time I had a heck of a time keeping that delta bean temperature from spiking back up. And I finally discovered that drum speed makes the biggest difference. So not all roasters have a variable drum speed. So some of them you can't affect drum speed at all, or even airflow. at Carew in Tallinn, Kaya didn't change her drum speed or airflow at all, which is a very common way of doing it. So here we are up at 370, right now at 1022. So I'm going to change that to about 0.25. And that was, what did I say, 1022? So really the reason I chart this is just so that I can see, I can go back and look and I can see, okay, what has changed? What's different? How do I stay as consistent as possible from one roast to the next? So that obviously so the flavor is consistent. Okay, so this coffee is probably well blended now. I can drop it in the bucket. So we are at 378. I want to turn my air up. So I missed that by about a degree, but that's fine. Why am I turning the air up? Just because I've read it somewhere and that's what people do and it seems to work. So that's why I do it. I'm sure there's a more scientific reason than that. So at 384, I will click first crack right there. Now you can see 384 was at 1130. Now what it's going to do is you can see this says development percentage. Essentially what this is the amount of time from when I clicked on first crack, when the beans first started cracking, divided by the total amount of time so far. So it's essentially X minus this divided by X being the total amount of time that is roasted so far. And you want that development to be around 20 to 25%. And you still want, you know, your delta bean temperature to continually drop the whole time. You also want your target temperature, which for me is about 400, you know, without exceeding 25% or coming under 20%. And so it's hard because with my espresso, I'm going up to about 425 degrees, and you still have to have only 25% development with first crack still being at 384. So it's a bit of a trick. But this is where I'm going to start really watching my delta bean temp, and I'm going to make sure it doesn't start spiking up, but I know it's going to start spiking at about 394. And at 396, I turn the gas off completely. So that's where you can see it start spiking up. So I'm going to turn that down to 55. That was at 393, so I'm going to chart that. 393. In the meantime, I'm going to go over here and close this door so that when I drop the coffee, it doesn't all fall out the bottom. Okay, now you can see it spiking up. So I'm now going to go down to 350. Excuse me, 50 for drum speed. And I'm going to watch that line. I'm going to make sure it doesn't go back up again. You can see it starting to come back down, but I know it's going to start popping back up. I'm going to go ahead and turn the gas off just a touch early. Right now, about 395. Or maybe I'll wait to see what it does. So you can see my delta is only 3 degrees per minute. Okay, so now I'm going down to 45. I'm turning the roast switch off so that the gas is now completely off. That was at 396 at about 1355. You can see my line is pretty flat. I'm going to go down to 40 at 396. 396. This was at 1355. Go back and look at my line again. You can see my development's at 19%. I'm trying, like I said, I'm trying to get that. Okay, my line is starting to flatten. I just want to make sure it doesn't pop back up again, which, like I said, it just has a tendency to do that. So I'm at 20% development. I'm going to go down to 35 at 397. And 30 at 397. You can see that line just starting to pop back up again. I'm at 22% development, so really I can drop it any time I want to. I'm trying to get to 400 degrees bean temperature, but I'm only changing 2 degrees per minute, so it's not going to change very quickly. And as this drops down to 1 degree and then flattens out at, you know, essentially flat lines at 0, I'm not going to get any. So the trick is I'm at 399 and I'm at 24%. So I'm probably not going to get to 3 point, but now you can see that spiking. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the cooling tray on and drop that coffee. Since that's the last batch, I can open that whole thing up because this is my last batch. I don't care how cool the drum gets. And I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to hit off because I'm done. So what it is that it's actually at 26%, so I'm 1% over at 400 at 15 minutes 27 seconds. So 400, 15, 27, and 26%. 725 is when dry end was. 380, first crack was at 11:30. And I forgot to jot down when I changed the air to the high temperature, but that's okay. So that is my last batch of the day. You can see the chart. What it does is it sort of normalizes some of these curves. So you can see it popped up just a little bit right there. But that's not that big of a deal. That's not going to affect the flavor. Because sometimes you'll see it'll come down and literally it'll spike all the way back up here before you drop it. That's no good. That really affects the flavor. So I have the opportunity to save this profile, which I don't want to because I've got enough of them. I'm going to discard that. I'm going to close that down because I'm done for the day. Unplug the thermocouples. And now all I'm doing is, this is blended Pickwick, this is single portion Carew. So once that's cooled down, then I can blend in some espresso with it, make it into Pickwick, and I'm done for the day. So that is my story. I'm sticking to it. I hope you enjoyed this roast video. And yeah, talk to you later.